stay on this concern that I have, particularly about Binance.
Regardless of whether Binance itself is connected with the Chinese Communist Party.
U.S. Senate hearing talks about Binance and U.S. fear of losing dominance of U.S. dollar as world reserve currency.
I'd like to touch on something that has been troubling me for some time. We know that FTX's collapse as the second largest exchange is continuing to have ripple effects throughout the entire digital asset industry. But if you look back to even early November, FTX didn't appear to have the necessary scale to cause an industry-wide systemic meltdown. Binance, on the other hand, is the largest global crypto exchange, nearly 7 times larger than FTX by trading volume. At least it was in the month leading up to FTX's collapse. And Binance's market share, now with the absence of FTX, I think means will only grow. If you think about a similar implosion by Binance, that would really prove catastrophic. It'd prove catastrophic for the cryptocurrency industry, and it would prove catastrophic to all of the consumers that utilize the industry. Yet U.S. regulators are limited in the extent to which they can mandate appropriate audits or appropriate disclosure of Binance's operations. Unlike the requirements placed on companies which are publicly traded here in the United States, Binance operates outside of our system. So, Ms. Shope, I'd like to start with you. How can U.S. regulators work with their global counterparts to bring transparency to Binance's activities and to understand the reserves that it holds?
I think you raise a very important point that when we talk about FTX or we talk about Binance, so much of what we're talking about is happening outside of our shores. And the influence that U.S. regulation can have on those exchanges and other crypto projects that are not taking place here is limited. I think it's very important to have an ongoing dialogue with international regulators in order to have influence where we can. But I think the most important thing for the United States to do is to create a rational crypto regulatory framework in the United States to try to bring some of that home so that we have maximum influence over how those businesses are operated.
And I want to stay on this concern that I have, particularly about Binance, about the Chinese Communist Party's role and support of that. To be clear, Binance is being proliferated around the world. It's a state-backed network. They're proliferating in emerging markets in a very predatory fashion. They're in developed markets. And again, now they have an even more open platform as FTX has been taken down. But if you think about an example like Binance with ties to the CCP, a committed partner to the Belt and Road Initiative, and particularly as it expands its market dominance with the collapse of FTX, what does that spell if lawmakers here in America follow through with their threats to ban digital assets or leave the current regulatory uncertainty in place? What does it mean for the global crypto market in general? What does it mean for our nation's national security and our economic security? And most important, what does it spell for the dominance of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency?
Regardless of whether Binance itself is connected with the Chinese Communist Party, which Binance denies, but regardless of whether that's the case, by having a system in the United States that's unclear, that's regulatorily hostile, that could go so far as banning cryptocurrency in the United States, we would be losing the position of having the possibility to maintain American dominance for these technological innovations.
I'm deeply concerned about that.
We would also be losing many of the great minds that want to work on these types of projects that can make strides not just in blockchain and cryptocurrency, but in other technological functions as well. To the extent that the United States is not a place that people look to for economic development, that also puts the U.S. dollar at risk.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
In an interview by CNBC, CEO of Binance said Binance does not owe money from other firms and FTX situation is different.
In terms of the credibility of Binance, you disclosed that Binance holds about $60 billion of crypto assets. But thus far, you haven't disclosed your liabilities. And I wonder why that is and whether you will.
Yeah, so we are working with firms to do the audit of financials, liabilities, etc. Very simply, Binance does not owe people money. Binance does not have loans from other companies, from other funds. We just don't have it. You can ask any fund in the ecosystem. You can ask any VC. We actually also do not have VC investments, so we don't owe anybody any money. And we also do not have loans to other people that we depend on for our next payroll. So we are very simple, very self-contained type of organization, and we manage our cash very simply. So that's very, very different from the FTX situation, where so people who are hurt by FTX are now worried about everybody else, and they were defending FTX before. But that's why they have money on FTX. So, but just because they're bitten by one snake doesn't mean that every other animal is the same.